So now we went out to the township in a van, and we get out with a bunch of cameras and recording equipment. And, so obviously Pokey steps out of his home a bit freaked out. Like, what on earth are these guys all doing here? But he'd been on my wall for a couple of years, so he's one of my heroes. So I run up to him to give him a big hug, and he's getting confused, and he looks around and sees these cameras. And so what I did is I took out my trusty iPod video so that I could show him. At the time, we were doing a song called Stand By Me all around the world. So I hand him the iPod video, and he starts to watch it, and it's a song around the world similar to this. And he gets very excited, so he runs inside to call all his friends to come perform. And in the meantime, my friends and I would go in the backyard, and there are these little tiny shacks. And it was the most sorrow and devastation I'd ever seen in my life, because in this township, about 7 out of every 10 people were suffering from HIV. And it was a horrendous situation. And so there were little babies that were dying, and the parents really trying to protect their kids. They didn't want any cameras back there or anything. So at first we went back there and we just said, well, maybe we shouldn't film here. What we'll do is we'll just offer them enough money to get some groceries, thank them for their time. But Pokey wasn't having that at all. He's inside calling all his buddies to come jam for the video. So the musicians come, and Pokey starts to set up. And all of a sudden, he starts to play with a bunch of musicians. And out of these little homes come the women and the children, and they start dancing and crying and screaming and so much joy. And it was like an exorcism right in front of us. This place that had been the saddest place I'd ever seen in my life, because of the music, transformed into celebration and into a party. And it showed us that even where there's tremendous sorrow and poverty, there's also incredible art. And that we can use the art to lift the people up. Because whether you have everything in life or whether you have nothing in life, all of us can share in the power of music. Now, after meeting Pokey and going through this experience and traveling around the world, we said, well, we have to give back. What can we do to help you? And there was an overwhelming response when people were saying, well, we need music schools. We need something to give these kids hope. If you offer children hope, anything is possible. But these townships in many places in the world, they just had no opportunities for the kids. So that's when we created the Playing for Change Foundation. And in the past 3 years, we've built 5 music schools around the world. But the intention is a much bigger mission. It's very similar to the War No More Trouble or the Stand By Me video. They start with one person, and they end up with the world coming together to perform in unity. So we're building these schools all around the world, connecting them all together with a partnership with NASA, so that kids in a new school we build together in Belenge can play with the kids in Guguletu and can perform with kids in New Orleans and in Nepal. They can learn all about each other. They can perform songs in real time. They can use this as a vehicle to break down the prejudices and the stereotypes we all learn at a young age. They can turn these schools into information centers where they can exchange ideas about how to get clean water and how to do disease prevention and exchange inspiration from something that starts with the human heart, as I spoke about, because it has no boundaries, it has no limits. If you start with music, everything is possible. Now, I'm going to give you one final example about, my brother, he sent me a quote yesterday, and I'm just going to read it to you guys. He said, "What we do in life isn't nearly as important as what it inspires. We can never fully realize in this life how our small actions, imbued with kindness and conviction, will inspire others." Now, we recently built a school in Tintali, Nepal. It's about 15 hours from Kathmandu and a 1-hour walk. Now, when we got there, we brought a bunch of instruments from Kathmandu. And these people had never left their village. They had never seen photographs. They'd never seen television or anything. So we bring a bunch of instruments, and the elders, they say, well, how are we going to pick the students? Well, we have these new flutes from Kathmandu that none of us have ever seen before. Let's line up the kids, and anybody who seems at all confident, or maybe they can play a note, they become a student. But it was all boys. So our guide is this fiery young woman from Kathmandu, and she says, wait a minute, where are all the girls? I said, oh, no, 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 no. The girls, they won't want to be involved in this. She says, of course they want to be involved with this. So she goes around to the huts, and she rounds up the girls. And there was this beautiful, young, confident woman who stepped up and played the flute. And I remember seeing the faces on the elders, the shock. And they just turned to us, and they said, well, we've been wrong all these years. And we'll now include the women in all our arts. So, with the intention of building a school that leads to women's rights in Tintali, Nepal, I want to just close with a final thought. With way too many starving children, way too many warring nations, we walk over homeless people on the way to work like they don't even exist. What is there to remind us of the power of the human spirit? As a human race, we come together for birth, and we come together for death. And what brings us together in between is up to us. So stop and listen to the universal language of music, and let's bring that positive energy and intention with us everywhere we go. Thank you.